Have you been thinking about homeschooling? If so, you need to talk to your spouse, talk to your family about it. We're going to have a conversation about what that looks like coming up next. Hey, welcome back to our channel, Molding Our Monkeys, where we talk about everything homeschooling. We talk about molding our monkeys, what that looks like. If you've been enjoying the content, we would love it if you'd subscribe to our channel. If you like what you see, hit a thumbs up on this video. And check out some of our other videos where we're talking about some of the checklists for what you need to do as you're thinking about homeschooling. This is one in a series where we're talking about various things that you need to be answering the questions in your own mind for as you talk about and think about homeschooling. So this one we're going to talk about being on the same page with your spouse and letting your family into the journey that you're about to go on. So if you're thinking about homeschooling, if you've been doing some research and going, is this what I want to do? You need to bring your spouse into that conversation. You need to be on the same page. If you're a mom or dad out there going, yeah, I think homeschooling could be the right thing for us. Don't have all those thoughts by yourself. Have a conversation with your husband, with your wife, about what that looks like, so that they can be part of that journey with you. And be prepared for some questions, because the reality is not everybody knows what homeschooling is. Not everybody is really familiar with what all that looks like, and they have questions. So if your spouse is really into sports and has really wanted to see their kids play sports in school, they might have the question, can they play sports if they're homeschooled? Maybe your spouse is really into music and the arts and plays and those kinds of things, and they're like, well, can they be in a school play? Can they be in the marching band? Those kinds of things. Then your spouse might have the question, is that a reality that we can have in our lives if we homeschool? The answer to those, at least in most states, is yes. That is pretty easy to dual enroll and for that to be part of your homeschooling experience. But you need to do some research and be able to answer that question and be okay with not having all the answers.
Right.
So go into that and just say, hey, this is what I'm thinking. Mm-hmm. What are your concerns? Let's find out the answers and go forward. So you can be on the same page. You know, we've talked about in one of our earlier videos of our own background of me growing up only knowing homeschooling, right, and Stephanie growing up only knowing the public school, right, and how when we got married, I didn't really want to push her into let's homeschool our kids. In fact, I wasn't sure that was the right choice for us.
Right. And
as our kids got a little bit older, Stephanie was actually like, we need to homeschool our kids. Right. And that's after being a teacher in the school system for a couple years. Yeah. So for us, that was an easy conversation.
Well, and it's so important for you both to be on the same page. Even though I do probably 99% of the formal education in our house, I couldn't do it if Luke wasn't on board. Yeah. So it is very important that both parents are on board. Yeah.
And that it's so much easier that way. But once you've had that conversation with your spouse, you guys are on the same page, you're ready to rock and roll, and this is what you're thinking you're going to do. There's some other people that you need to be part of this journey with you a little bit. And it kind of depends on how close you are with your family, but it's a really good idea to let the grandparents know what's going on, to talk to them, to explain to them. They're going to have some of the same questions that maybe your spouse had. If they don't know what homeschooling is, if they don't know about how your kids could be involved in other things, how they can make friends, that kind of stuff. So be prepared to answer those questions, but go and talk to the grandparents, maybe the aunts and uncles, and just let them know, hey, this is what we're thinking about doing. Be okay with a little bit of unsureness. I mean, you're going to have people that question whether or not you can raise, or whether or not you can educate your kids.
Right.
And that's just a reality. I mean, Steph has that.
Right. I've got an elementary degree to teach elementary school, and I still get questions or concerns as to whether I'm capable of teaching my kids. But the important thing to remember when you're presented with that concern is, are you able to teach your kids? Nobody knows your child better than you. God gave you your kids for a reason, and you know them better than anybody.
Yeah, the statistic I've heard is that the average PhD takes like 3,800 hours to get, and that you have a full-time parent has that much time with a kid by the time they are like 3 years old. So you're the one with the education, the doctorate in your own children,
Right.
and understanding them, understanding how they learn, understanding what makes them tick.
Right. Yeah, you may not have the education to be a teacher, but that's not the hard part.
Well, that's what the curriculum's for.
Exactly.
I mean,
you find a curriculum that works for you and your kids, which we'll talk about in a later video too, but the important part is knowing your kid and how they're going to learn and what makes them them, and that's what's going to be important as far as being able to teach your kids.
And it's okay to say, give us a semester, give us a year. We'll show you how the kids are growing.
Right.
And it's you have times to you can show them some worksheets that the kids are doing, some projects that the kids are doing. Right. Maybe have them over for a day and say, here, check out what a day of school looks like for us.
Yep.
Just because a lot of people don't know what a day of homeschooling looks like. Yeah. So let them in on the journey. You'll be really glad that you did, because that support from that extended family will be really helpful as you go forward and as your kids get older. Because you want your extended family to be part of your life. And the cool thing is with homeschooling, maybe you can get involved in like a co-op or something.
Right.
Our co-op has done some cool stuff kind of at the end of the year where the kids do presentations on something they've been working on for a semester. And then we invite grandparents to come and see the kids stand up and do these presentations.
The neat thing is, you're not going to have like Grandparents' Day at like the public school system does, but you find ways to do that. You may take grandma on a field trip with you, and then she can see that firsthand learning. Our co-op does the family night. Our kids do a education fair through a larger homeschool group that we're a part of. And it's a great way for the grandparents to come and say, wow, look at what you're learning. And in that situation, it also shows there's so many more homeschoolers that bring their stuff to this education fair that so they get a bigger glimpse of what homeschooling is too, not just at our house, but in the surrounding area.
It lets them know that you're not the only one in the whole tri-state area that's homeschooling. When they see all these other families and they realize just how many people out there have chosen this path to educate their kids. At least in our area, there are a lot.
Right.
It's a pretty significant amount of people that are homeschooling, and it gives us this great group to get together with, to do field trips with, and to just let the grandparents see that and be a part of that a little bit can really help them to understand what you're doing and support it in a more significant way.
Yes, absolutely.
So that's kind of the big point we want to make in this video. Get on the same page with your spouse. Let the grandparents know. They don't have to, you don't have to get their permission, but at least let them know what's going on. And show them what's going on. Tell them what's going on. Answer the questions. It's good for both of you to have that conversation and go from there.
Well, and it's okay when those questions come up for you to say, I don't know the answer, but I'm going to get back to you. And come back and think about those and then get back to them.
One of the things that we've noticed with some of the families that we've seen go through this process is a lot of times they're more scared of that conversation than they really need to be. They've got this image in their mind, this fear that, we're going to be disowned by our family because we're going to do this really weird thing of homeschooling our kids. And that's not at all what happens, like, at least in all the experience we've seen.
Right.
Everybody that we've talked to, everybody that we've seen, at least that I know of, they have that conversation with the grandparents. And the grandparents will have some questions, but they always come around.
Right.
They're always like, yeah, this is okay. And maybe you'll be the exception to that.
Right.
And that's not the end of the world. But at least have that conversation. At least show them the respect to say, hey, we want you to see what your grandkids are doing and how they're being educated, and to let you know that this is the path we're choosing and why we're choosing it.
Right.
So
Yep.
that's really the point of this video. So take that and run with it. Go have those conversations. If this has been helpful for you, then give us that thumbs up. We would love it if you'd subscribe to our channel. We would love to hear your stories in the comments. If you've had some scary, I don't know what they're going to say, and then it turned out good, we'd love to hear about that. Love to hear about how you got on the same page with your spouse and informed your family that this is what you're going to do. So let's have a conversation in the comments about that, and we will see you next time as we talk about molding our monkeys.